on race cars.
All
Anyway,
righty. Thank you.
today, what's that?
Here we go. We're ready to go. Welcome to another episode of Speed Tips by Bob and Chad. This week we've got special guest Damon Murty, um, father to Dallin Murty, who we had on a few months ago. Of course, Damon has a storied career, Super Nationals champion, Nationals champion, many track championships. And how many features have you won?
Uh, Probably over 300, probably 320.
Wow, that's amazing. So, how long have you been racing, Damon?
Uh, we started in 94, late 94.
Awesome,
We started in hobby stock.
awesome. Well, how are you today, Chad?
Good. Yeah, another March Madness Monday here. Trying to keep the orders rolling out. It's been pretty busy. Suffering a little jet lag from our weekend out there in Pennsylvania, but went pretty good.
Yeah, I was good yesterday, even though we had numerous flight delay after flight delay after flight delay. And of course, on the way out there, we had flight delay, flight delay, flight delay. What really corked me about the whole weekend, Troy beat us home by an hour.
Really? Jesus.
Oh, I was pissed. Jervis drove my trailer out there and then drove it back. And with all the flight delays, he actually ended up getting home an hour earlier than we did by flying it. Oh, I was dead. I mean, I was a
That's
little
usually that's
frustrated.
usually the way it works. When we come home from Florida, Dawn usually flies home the kids, and me and Kendall usually beat her back by about an hour.
Yeah, I'm just like, I wish I mean, of course, you're sitting in an airport, there's not a whole lot you can do. So it's just, it's one of them things. But I did get 10,000 steps because, of course, I think we went across the airport, I don't know, three times, I think, depending on where we were flying or where our next flight was supposed to schedule. So tell me about your new family adventure with that 99 late model car.
Yeah, we got a. I guess we met him in 2020. Shannon Reese, Van Reese, and he's been sponsoring us ever since. And we, yeah, we sat down this winter and we had a few options that we was talking about doing, and we just decided why don't we go late model racing. So we got some guys put together and got some money rounded up, and now we got late model.
Well, that's awesome. I seen that on Facebook last night, and I'm like, well, heck, I hadn't heard nothing about this deal.
Yeah, we haven't told too many people yet until he put it on Facebook.
Yeah, well, that's a sharp looking car. That's pretty awesome. That's where he needs to be. I mean,
Yeah,
you
I
know,
think so too.
I mean, he deserves that ride.
I mean,
So
we had some more we had some more stuff with modifies they could have went and did, but I don't know. You know, the end goal is for him to be in a late model, so we just figured, we just will do it now than later.
yep, I would agree. I think that's a totally smart move, and I mean, like look at Ethan Dotson, who
Yep,
was in modified, and now he's a big time late model guy, and so it'd be pretty cool to see Dallin get the opportunity to do that.
yep.
So tell us about your feature win down there in Florida. That was pretty sporty.
Yeah, that was I wasn't expecting that, I guess. We went down there and we kind of I don't know if I say I struggled, but I just wasn't where I needed to be, and finally that last night, um, I had a few guys with me and that come over and was helping. Paul was there, and we just started changing a few things, and this car little different stuff than my other car did.
Sure. Well, when you switch, or when you're driving a different brand, that's just pretty common that they're gonna like different stuff, and so no, but that was pretty exciting. I watched that race, and that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I was really pleased. I mean, like I said, taking a new chassis down there and then a chassis I've never drove before. I didn't know how it was going to go, and I think every time I was on the racetrack, we had something different in it, just trying different stuff and changing springs and that last night for the feature, we finally got it.
Yeah, no, it looked good. I mean, I know I watched. Well, I think I watched all of those races, and I know
Mhm.
there was a couple of them that you struggled a little bit. But I mean, there was, even though you were struggling a little bit, you were still pretty darn competitive.
Yeah, I was all right. Just yeah, I just kept complaining I couldn't feel my right rear. And and Paul, I told Paul, I said I don't have the forward neither, and I said, but I think it's in the right rear. I said it's a right rear problem. I think if we get the right rear, then I'll have forward traction. Just
Sure,
feel it. So, but yeah, it was really good that last night.
awesome. So, are you going to Oklahoma?
No, um, we're skipping that race.
Okay.
That was we went down there last year, and Dallin didn't have a. That's when he had his big accident, and
Oh, that's right.
yeah, so we decided. Mom told us last year before we went that not to go, and we went. So I guess we better start listening to Mom.
Yeah. Well, they have that intuition thing. That's what they say.
Mhm. You know,
So what's your plans for the year then?
help Dallin on the late model, and then uh, of course he's going to have a stock car. So there's a lot of stock car specials this year that we're going to hit.
Yeah, there's some pretty big paying shows coming up.
Yeah,
So that'd be cool.
we might go to. It's up in the air where we're going this weekend, either Beatrice or Memphis, whichever weather looks the best.
Yeah, because what Beatrice was supposed to race last weekend and then they postponed it.
Yep, yep.
Um, isn't Spencer trying to race this weekend too?
It's next weekend. It's the same as the Nippy 50.
Oh, okay.
Yep, it's 2 weeks out, or not this weekend, next weekend.
Well, then the weekend after that we'll have Frostbusters.
Yep, it's about ready to all hit the fan all at once.
Yeah, it's gonna be going pretty good. There's no doubt about that. So um, what do you got going? Anything new you got going on besides the late model this year, Damon?
No, oh, just the late model.
Just the late model. Well, that's gonna be fun.
Yep.
Well, we got a superstar in the stock car here, guys. So we need to be asking some questions. Okay, there we go. Oh, Park Jefferson is trying to race this weekend. Hmm. Well, we'll just have to see how that goes. Um, I actually, I knew about Wednesday's weather's not looking good, but
Um,
kind of sounds like the weekend's not going to be all bad.
no, 60. It sounds like.
Yeah, that's doable.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Josh laid down the law today. They're getting ready to go to the King of America next weekend. So he said
Awesome.
race season. So they hooked the truck and trailer up, and they're going to start working on FS1, and they'll be at Lucas Oil Speedway for the King of America next weekend. So
Cool. Well, that's going to be exciting that you finally got that truck back so that it can actually go on the road instead of sitting in some shop somewhere.
I told him to take a couple trips around here before we go 10 hours to Missouri.
Yeah, yeah. Chad had engine problems with his hauler. What was that? 2 years ago? 3 years ago?
Yeah, it was 2 years ago, Super Nationals.
2 years ago, Super Nationals. And so then they decided to put a new engine in the hauler, and well, needless to say, it's
Took a
hasn't
while.
worked out as well as he thought it was going to be. So
Took a little longer than you thought.
yeah.
Yeah, picked the wrong shop.
Yeah, that happens.
Ryan, UMP modified with the car and dynamic. How much difference between the wheelbase on the right side and the left side is normal? Feel like the car has too much rear steer and is scrubbing speed on the straight stretches. You know, I guess that's a possibility, but you know, the steer numbers kind of run between 2.5 and and up to 3 inches. I think in my opinion, it's still all about where you can go through phase two. You know, where you can be the fastest in the middle of the corner. The rest of the stuff, I just don't think is a big deal. But you know, maybe it is. What's your thoughts, Chad?
Well, I was going to say maybe it's a combination of the steer and the stagger. Maybe you have too much stagger and then that's carrying that free down
Yeah.
the straightaway. So I kind of like to run maybe a little more dynamic roll steer and less stagger myself. So I don't know how much he's running there, but maybe it's a deal where you take some stagger away so it doesn't break free down the straightaway.
And that kind of tends to be a trend. Um, what kind of stagger do you like in your stock cars, Damon?
Oh, like a quarter reverse.
Okay, I've heard guys doing that.
Yeah.
Troy wants to know, Damon, what your thoughts are on the Camaro body.
Uh, I think they're going to be all right. If you're traveling, I suggest to get a spare nose and spare fenders. Because there's a lot, like especially down in Florida, no one carried none of that stuff, and the guy that was parked 2 cars down from us, he got into someone and destroyed the nose, and the nose was all messed up, and them fenders bolt together. So yeah, I suggest to have maybe a spare nose, and I went home. We come home and I went and got a spare nose and some spare fenders so we can carry around with us just in case.
No bad idea. Ryan says he's down to a half an inch of stagger. Well, just back some of that steer out of it and see, what your performance is. I'm just afraid that the cars with half an inch of stagger, you take too much steer out of it, it's going to be pretty tight in the middle of the corner. Tim wants to know about a 16-inch or an 18-inch left rear spring. I'm not a huge fan on them super tall springs. I don't like running anything more than a 16. I'm assuming, Tim, you're talking about a stock car because, like, even in the modified, we've actually kind of went back to 13-inch left rear springs because it seems like the 13-inch spring, the shorter spring, in my opinion, will load faster than the longer spring because you just have some more coils to have to kind of have to deal with. Jamie wants to know what you run for front stagger in your car, Damon.
Quarter to even up.
Awesome. A lot of the stock cars are all across the board on that front stagger.
Yeah,
I mean,
when I got this B&B, I asked everyone that ran them, and everyone told me to run 1.5 to 2 inches, and I don't know. These things are so free getting in the way it is. I I took that out right away.
Larry, on a B mod, would you take left front camber out? Okay, on a B mod, would taking left front camber out affect corner entry? Yeah, because that left front tire is loaded for a split second on a modified or a B mod. Actually, with the B mod, it's probably loaded a little bit longer. I would never, I mean, in my opinion, you need to run a 4 degrees of, and how you'd actually do that is, put the thing in dynamic and check to see kind of what's actually going on, because you don't want that tire to ever be, you want it to be flat when it's fully on the ground, but you also still want it to be flat when it's in dynamic and that left front's up, because once again, when you get into the corner, it's going to come down on that left front, and you're going to need that left front corner to do a good job of sticking the front end. Whoops, lost Damon. Sticking the front end, getting into the corner. Doug is evidently getting a couple guys to be on, get on the show. What's your opinion on that front end setting, Chad?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important. I mean, a lot of people forget about the left front, but it is the initial steer into the corner in phase one is where it all begins.
Sure. Yeah, no doubt about that. No doubt about that. So the guys are going to the King of America's show next weekend, did you say?
Yep, next weekend, Lucas Oil Speedway. Yeah.
And that's actually going to be held it's not held at Humboldt anymore?
Nope, Lucas Oil. They moved it this year. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. Well, I'll tell you what, we had a good time out there, and we got to hang out quite a bit. Got to do a little extra driving on Saturday night, and some of them drivers, man, I'll tell you what. I was amazed at the speeds that some of those guys travel out there on that open highway. But anyway, students-wise, I thought we had a great class. I thought those guys did an awesome job. I was very pleased. And of course, Joel always knocks it out of the park. I mean, he spends a lot of time making sure that, everything's going well. And so what happened? Did you?
I don't know what happened. I could hear you guys and see you guys, but I was off for some reason.
Huh.
Well, you're back on just in time. Damon, with all your success in the previous chassis brand that you ran, why did you change, or is that a subject for off record?
Yeah, it's Dallin bought this car, or Dallin won this car B&B 2 years ago at Super Nationals, and Kyle was supposed to have me a car done in January, so I could put it together, and it wasn't done, so I got the B&B out,
Awesome.
put it together.
Taylor, what are the benefits of keeping the right front spring at a lower weight than the left front spring? Also, is it worth sacrificing total rear weight percentage to keep the ballast in front of the rear end, street stock car style? Well, the overall trend has been probably for the last few years of, running a softer right front than the left front, especially with the stock cars, because, they've always been a little bit sketchy on the right rear. They don't always have a whole lot of right rear feel in them. So that kind of helps that right rear, helps keep that right rear stuck. Weight wise, of course, I'm not really a big believer in having weight super far back, but we'll ask Damon, see what he says, because he's got more experience with those cars than me.
What was that about the weight being back far?
Yeah, it says, what is the benefits of keeping the right front spring at a lower weight than the left front? And then is it worth sacrificing total rear percentage to keep the ballast in front of the rear end?
Um, the right front deal. I mean, you just feel the right rear way better the softer you get, uh, and that's where these things struggle. It seems like is feeling the right rear. So, uh, and on the weight in the back, I probably most of my weight is probably in front of the fuel cell. I do have on this car, I do have more high and more, I guess, in the back than what I would have ran in a Terminator. But I don't know if it's because these things are a lot rigid car than what my Terminator was. So to get it to move, we had to move some of it around and move it up high
Hmm.
and move it towards the back.
Kinson, on a USRA B mod, what would adding more camber do to the handling of the car? Well, it's all about, once again, when the car is all in dynamic, you kind of like to have, I still believe you need to have a degree of camber in the right front, just because you're going to get, a little bit of tire roll. That's pretty common. Um, Left front, once again, I still recommend on a B mod or any modified, 4 to 5 degrees. Um, we run, on our modifieds, we run upwards of 7 degrees on the right front, and we do the same thing on our B mod as we do on our A mod. On a USR B mod, no, that's the same question. Well, no, it looks different. On a USA B mod, would adding more camber to the right front due to handling of the car?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I kind of just answered that.
It's going to make it turn and cut better.
Yes. Yeah, that's for sure.
So when you go to a new racetrack, Damon, maybe just talk about how you analyze each track, and do you change the camber from track to track?
Usually not. Usually I try to get as much camber in them as we can, and the right front, the left front, we don't really pay too much attention because we can only get like a degree or a degree and a half. It seems like so. But the right front, we always try to get a lot of camber in it, so that way they can. It just seems like they cut a lot better.
Yeah, that
And
would make sense. That would make sense to me.
and when we go to different tracks, I usually don't mess with the camber. I guess we just do it with the left rear spring or right front spring. Change the right front spring if it needs to get over there more or too much. Stiffen it up.
Dane, the closer you get the left and cross weight to each other, the more balanced the race car is, right? Um, Not always. Left rear bite, I don't know what you run, Damon, but left rear bite, um, I don't, we don't run a big amount. The more left rear bite you put in the car, it seems like it makes the car freer getting in. So, in answer to your question, left rear or the rear percentages between the two rear tires, yeah, the closer you get it, if not a lot, is going to be more balanced. What's your opinion on that, Damon?
I don't never pay attention to the cross. I pay attention to the left side weight, I guess. If you get too much left side in these stock cars, they seem to get really skatey on entry. So you got to find the bounce, where the happy medium is there. Actually,
Yeah.
I couldn't even tell you where my car is at now. We changed so much down there, and we we usually don't scale the car anymore. We load stick it. So we come home after down there, and I load sticked everything, and so I know where all everything is, and wrote it all down. So yeah, I don't even know where mine's at as far as bite or cross.
Gotcha. Awesome. So you don't scale the car anymore. You use load sticks more.
Yep. The only thing we use to scale the car is to get the left side percentages and the rear percentage where we want it. And then once we get that set, we usually don't change no lead in the back or move it around left to right. I mean, if we do, we got, maybe a 20-pound chunk we might put on the right rear once in a while.
Jamie, what is a good front split in a stock car? Do you remember when you were scaling it, kind of what you had difference between the two front wheels? Seemed to me, I was thinking there's about
I
100
think
pounds.
I think the right front was always heavy. Well, I know it was right. My right front was always way heavier than my left one.
Okay,
So probably had not as much cross and a lot of bite probably.
gotcha. Um, so what kind of left side percentage do you normally like to run?
Uh, like 51.8 to 52,
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
51.5.
That seems to be a pretty common point with those cars. Um, Somebody's beating you up here. David says, "Common Damon, no secrets shared." LOL.
David Brandy's.
No, David.
Horning.
How would you? Yeah, how would you pronounce that, Chad?
I think Horning.
Yeah,
No.
Marcus. How much travel on the spring style pull bar is ideal, and would you change it for dry slick conditions? IMCA modified. Um, Man, we keep it right at an inch is what we've always tried to. Um, that seems to always has been a pretty good. Seems like if you get too much, the problem when you get too much movement, then of course it might help. Some guys might think it might give you a little bit more traction. However, the problem is when you get to the other end, it can tend to fall more. So we've just kind of been pretty much in that 1 inch range. What do you think, Chad?
Yeah, I think most IMCA cars with that hard tire are only traveling that 7/8 inch and a quarter seems to be pretty much the range. With that tire, you need the grip quicker because the tire has no grip. So you're basically traveling a short distance. So you got max grip. The solid pull bar has the most traction, but you need just a little bit of movement on there to time it out for you so you don't break the traction. So most of them hard tire cars are going 1 and a quarter.
So now Dallon's not going to run a modified then this year. He's going to run the late model instead.
Yep, just a late model stock car.
Um, so what brand of a late model car do you have?
It's a 2023 Longhorn by
Oh,
Murty.
gotcha. Um, well, Dane wants to know your opinion of reverse stagger. Well, you said that you run a little reverse stagger, so
It just it gives it traction when you get back to the gas. tightens you up in the center of the corner, I think.
Yeah. Well, that would make sense. Jeremy, do you switch rear springs more often or rear shocks to make adjustments?
Usually spring. Usually right rear spring is what I'll mess around with the most.
Yeah, and I know there's some guys play a little bit with the right rear shock. I don't see really anybody changing the left rear. Um, Sometimes, like I said, depending on the track conditions, some guys will go to a little bit more of a tie down right rear. All that does is just keep the car from getting up on the trailing arm too quick. You can run a little bit more steer to help it through the middle of the corner and not get so much uh, right up off the corner. Would be the only thing that I would say on that deal.
The left rear shock, we got a couple different options, I guess. If it's if the track's hammered down rough, we might soften it up a little bit so it's not so radical.
Sure. Yeah.
But
Well,
a lot of times I'll just put a stiffer spring in if it's that way on the right rear,
gotcha.
or move that arm up or down on the right rear.
Jesse says, I found the biggest speed secret to my BHE car. I hired a wheelman. Odd what happens when you change the nut behind the wheel. I've actually seen that happen before. Um, back in the day, I tried racing myself for 3 years, and every time I put a driver like Denny Osborne in my car, we ran up front, and when I got in it, I ran mid pack. So it didn't take me too long to calculate the fact that it was a lot better to pay somebody to be in there that knew what the heck was going on. And I found that I was just a little better crew chief than I was a driver. My biggest thing was I calculated all of the expenses. So it's just like, oh God, if I stick it in there, I could ruin a wheel. And it's like, no, you can't drive like that.
No.
Justin, what rear percentage does Damon shoot for when scaling a car?
Like the rear percentage, like around 54. I think I went down to Texas. I had like 55, and I took what I take out when I got down there. I think I took out 40 pounds or 35 pounds off the rear, so I'm probably down to 54.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, people, I mean, it kind of depends on their driving style. We've got some guys that, from what I have seen in the stock car, if you get too much rear percentage, that's that one that's going to be tight in the center of the corner and not necessarily turn real well off the corner. It just doesn't, to me, it just doesn't look like they work as well. But
It just seems like you get a lot of, you hear guys run 58 rear percent, and it just, every time I add lead, it just seems like it makes it lazy, and I've never was a big lead, put a bunch of lead on. We, especially now, I mean, we got so much adjustments to these cars than what we had back, 10 years ago that we can do to these things. So I usually never add lead.
sure. So then, so you're running the B&B now. What did you have to do to that? Did you do anything to that car from when it was 2 years old to when you raced it?
Didn't do nothing. Didn't do nothing. Just put it together.
Just put it together.
Yeah, putting new parts on it.
There you go.
I don't think he's really changed anything, has he?
Not really.
I know them new frames, are out, but other than that, I don't know they've really, well, I guess I did. I relocated, like I changed the right front shock and I changed the left front upper, I guess. But that was nothing I don't think he did. But
That was the B&B by Murty.
yeah, yeah.
There you go. Cool. Well, like I said, Paul believes in a relatively rigid car, and I mean, they seem to win quite a few races.
Yeah, they do.
What's your thoughts on that new frame?
I don't know. We went to Dallin raced out in Arizona this year, and Tommy Fain had one out there, and the second weekend I got in it and practiced all that Wednesday night or whatever night it was, and I practiced in it, and I don't know it. Yeah, it rode really rough, and I don't know. This car don't ride near as rough as that thing did, and I don't know if it's a new frame or what's going on.
Well, I mean, the new frame does make it look a little more rigid.
Yeah.
How close
Yeah.
were you when you and Dallin were both both in Terminator? How close were your setups?
Our load stick numbers, like I mean, I've never been able to take two cars the same and load stick them the same. His numbers was always a little bit different than mine. We was close. Usually our springs was real close. He likes a little softer right rear than I do, but I like my right rear to stick hard, and he's a little better on the gas and waiting on it a little more than I do, I guess. But I mean, other than that, we was pretty close, I guess. But we always had different load stick numbers.
Barrett, what should you set your brake adjuster to at the beginning of the night? And what would constitute moving it to the front? Well, I'll let you answer that one, Damon.
I had this B&B on the front and never come off the front the whole weekend. So I always look at the track, and if it's really slick, I crank all the way to the front and then maybe go 2 turns off the front. If it's hammer down, you're gonna run the cushion, big cushion. I'll go to the rear and go like 3 turns off the rear. I guess the more front brake is going to tighten you up on brake when you brake in the middle of the corner or getting into the corner. More rear brake is going to free the car up when you get on the brake.
Yeah, nope, that makes sense. Kind of depends on the chassis setup. Like the modifieds tend to start with a little more rear brake.
Yeah.
Just because they need a little more help turning, because they've got a little more side bite. I don't know. And as the night goes on, like Damon just said, as the racetrack gets slicker, you start going to the front and just trying to keep the back of the car underneath you.
Yep.
Les, how to establish where the roll axis is located in a USRA modified? Front to rear, rear is independent suspension and rear is solid axle with a J-bar. What's your thoughts on that, Chad?
Well, I mean, first you need a roll center program to find out where the front is. And then the rear is, I think, usually if you look at the J bar, there's some sort of a halfway between the two distances and the height for where the rear roll center is. But in my opinion, I feel like the front roll center, the more you move it left, the more the car turns. Generally, the rear roll center in a dirt car is to the left of the front roll center, and that makes the cars tight on entry or gives them grip, gives them traction. Most asphalt cars would be the opposite. They run their pannier bar on the right side of the car, and the front roll center is generally to the left of the rear roll center because they naturally need to rotate, and they're continuing through the corner, turning the wheel with a lot more grip than a dirt car. So the dirt car needs the grip from the roll centers being the opposite direction, where an asphalt car needs to rotate more than a dirt car. The dirt car needs the grip. So if you have a roll center program, you got to do all the complicated measurements on the front roll center to find out where the front is, and then figure out where the rear is based on the length of the J bar, and then balance it out.
Carrie wants to know, is Dallin still in his Terminator?
Yeah.
I mean, it's the
Yep.
same car that he ran last year, right?
Yep.
It's
Yep.
right.
He's in the same car as he was last year.
I thought so. Greg, Damon, do you feel it's necessary to have a brand new stock car?
No. There's a lot of old cars out there still win races. Just every year go through them. Put new rotors on, new brakes. Go through your front end. Make sure your front end's not bent. Nothing's bent up there. No, as long as the frame's not bent, these stock cars can run a long time.
Well, the majority of the cars, like Richards's car, has got about 60 nights on it, and it seems like it's just getting better.
Oh yeah.
Troy's car that guy from Michigan bought, that car had 60 nights on it, and he looked pretty sporty down there in Florida.
He was really good.
And so, yeah, I don't know. I don't see the need because, like you said, there's a lot of cars out there that still have an awful lot of life left in them.
All my Terminators since 2015 or 16, it seems like after a year goes by, they just keep getting better and better every year. And I don't know why that is. If they get flexed, or better or what?
Shane wants to know, when adding left rear trailing arm angle, do you make it a point to take some steer out so that the car doesn't free up so quickly?
Now we put on that down as far as you can go, and we never change it as far as the left control arm angle. But the slicker it gets, I think you want more drop in the left rear. My opinion.
Yeah, that's kind of what that would, once again, that makes sense. I mean, more left rear angle, drive angle is going to give you more traction.
Yeah.
Kip, Damon, what are you doing for wheel offsets?
Well, it depends on what rear end you got. Makes a difference. Like the 60-inch stuff, we run 2s all the way around, except for the right rear. We run a 4-inch. On the 62-inch rear end, you run a 4 and a 4 on the left rear, and then a 2 all the way around, except for the rest of the corner, except for the right rear, you run a 4.
Yeah.
So
Greg
basically,
says,
there's fours in the rear and twos in the front if you run 62.
gotcha. Greg says, old dog, new tricks.
It's Greg Castley.
Yeah, Greg cat. Chris, what do you feel is the best left rear setup for maximum traction on corner exit? Well, you kind of just answered that.
Yeah, more drop.
Yep. Damon, throughout a feature, how can a driver determine if they are overworking or overheating the right rear? And is there a change that the driver can make to correct this issue during the race?
Oh, I guess if I think I'm overworking the right rear, I'm skating it, getting in. Um, back your entry up a little bit so you're not skating it as bad. I usually in the stock car stuff, you don't really have to worry about it too much unless you're running in rubber. Anytime we're in rubber, then I try to save my right rear. But in these 20 lap races on slick or whatever you're on, we don't usually abuse the right rear that bad.
Um, Barrett says that was an Iron Series Sport Mod. Well, the biggest thing, with the Sport Mod guy, a lot of Panhard, a lot of guys will run a lot of Panhard bar in the car, which makes the right rear stick. And I understand that feeling that they need, but what happens, or what my opinion is, they need to rely more on the throttle and hook the left rear up more so that the right rear just kind of helps the car turn. Because if you put a lot of load on that right rear, it's going to get hot. If you run too low of air pressure, it's going to flex the sidewalls a lot, and it's going to make that hot. So, just have a better balanced race car.
Yeah.
Les, Chad, understood, but with a pavement car, the roll center is lowering dirt, it is raising. Most pavements are behind the rear end, dirt is in front and rising. Do you think that program identifies this roll axis and height of the roll center?
We don't make a roll center program ourselves. Bob, what you just said, the one in the class, I don't know what was
The one that I have used in the past is Performance Trends. It's very detailed, and that being said, it does take quite a bit of work. I mean, it requires a lot of measurements to do it accurately.
Yeah, as far as the only asphalt car I know where the Panhard bar is behind the rear end is the old Cup cars. Most of the asphalt super late stuff is a J bar in front of the rear end.
That's kind of what I thought. Shane wants to know, Damon, if you could change one rule in the stock car class, what would you change?
The right height rule.
Yeah, that's a pain in the butt.
Stupid. When you're changing sprint, it's the dumbest. I mean, we're not on no concrete out there. Most time we're on dirt and grass, and the right front's in a hole or the right rear's in a hole, and you're trying to make adjustments. And yeah, that's what I would change. I mean, obviously it didn't do no. I mean, the cars are still running the same way they was before on the right front.
Tad, do you think there's a difference between changing a wheel offset versus a wheel spacer or rear end width? In my opinion, wheel offset versus wheel spacer basically does the same thing. It's kind of moving the center of that tire out or in, depending on what you do. Rear end width, we just, I like that 62-inch rear end. Um, it seems like it works pretty good in our BMB stuff. I know some guys like the 60-inch rear end, but like Damon said, if you run a 62-inch rear end, you run a 4-inch offset wheel. And if you run a 60-inch rear end, you run a 2-inch offset wheel. So I don't, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean this B&B is the first time I've always ran 60 before and with a 2-inch, and we got this B&B and it's a 62, and I mean that's what we was on was a 4, and you know the if you're on a 60, you can always move the left rear end, but it seems like it makes it really skatey getting in, but you got traction as soon as you hit the gas. Uh, I never really we've messed around with it a little bit, but we always ran the 2. We never sucked it in. So
Yeah. Well, um, don't forget about the June 24th. The Harris Clash by Wehrs Machine and Racing Products is going to be at Boone Speedway. Looking forward to this year. We added a stock cars, so that's going to be a new deal. If everything goes good, my plan for that stock car purse is to pay 3,000 to win and 250 to start.
you got a cap on the cars.
No.
We're
We'll be
gonna have
racing.
500 of them there.
We'll be racing all night into the morning.
So anyway, that's kind of my plan. The modified is going to pay 4,000 to win and 250 to start. I'm trying to get a few more sponsors to help us out. I'd really like to get that Sport Mod deal up where it pays a little bit more to start. Right now, it's I think it's 150 to start and 2,000 to win. So now I haven't got all of that approved by Lottie, but I told him just to trust me. We'll make it work. I ain't paying that. So I think he's going to trust me, and I'm confident it will work. So anyway, Matt wants to know Sport Mod crate versus open motor. Which would you recommend? Well, the thing that I've found with the open motor, it qualifies a little better because you can run a few more RPMs. Um, and the thing is, like say, we'll just take Boone or Marshalltown or normally the sport mod guys run before the stock cars and the modifieds. So feature wise, um, the racetracks still have some grip to them, and I just think that RPM thing is a big deal. Now, when it gets real, if you got to run later in the program, where the crate motor can shine when the racetrack's gone, I think it's hard to condemn that crate motor in that situation. But qualifying wise, that open motor tends to just out qualify.
Did you miss that, Jamie, about extended load?
Oh, sorry about that. Damon, do you run the left rear on a bite number or an extended load?
I guess I would say extended load, and I think I am. Can't remember what it was. We did so much changes. I need to look at that. I don't know if I looked at that when I was here. I think we was like at 2 inches into the spring. I extended.
Yeah, it's pretty common. Todd wants to know, how exactly do lift bars work? What's your thoughts on that, Chad?
Well, the lift bar tends to be freer. I think the majority of that is just because it picks up and pushes down in the center of the car versus being on the top side of the rear end and driving more forward and back. But they tend to be turned better than a lift bar or than the pull bar does, but they don't have as much traction. The pull bar is always going to win the traction war, and the lift arm is always going to win the turn war.
Yeah. The drivability of lift arm is substantially better. They just lack traction off the corner. Your old buddy in the 21 car, Jim Horsey, says,
Yep.
get more speed secrets from him. We all want to go faster.
Tell him he won before I did down there.
I was thinking the same thing. I'm thinking, I think he's the one that needs to share some speed secrets
Yeah.
with us.
Yeah, he won before I did.
Yeah, and he actually should have won 2 shows.
The first night. Yeah, the first night he should have won.
Todd, how to adjust them for forward bite? Basically you can play with lengths. You can play with spring rates, shock rates, and that's about the extent of it. Todd says, thank you guys. I enjoy the YouTube channel. Thank you for all your great help and great content. Well, we appreciate that. It's 8 o'clock. Our next show is going to be actually the 17th. Actually, it'll be March 31st. So we should have some races to talk about by then. I sure appreciate you coming on tonight and giving us your time, Damon. That's pretty cool.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, that was great. And like I said, you look great down there in Florida. That was pretty awesome. I was thrilled to see Horsey win, and I was really thrilled to see you win.
Yeah,
So
I think Horse was more happy about me winning than I was. He come up and grabbed a hold of me, and yeah, he was pretty excited.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, thanks, guys. You all have a good week.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.
Yep. Thanks.